Politicians are focused on Britain following the nation's general election, which has seen David Cameron reinstated as Prime Minister. And local international relations professor Robert Patman joins us to explain what the election result means for New Zealand. Good evening.
Good evening, Rebecca.
Is this result a surprise?
Yes, I think it is, because many of the polls were predicting up to the election they were neck and neck, whereas in fact the Conservatives have won quite clearly. They've got a clear majority. They've got about 37% of the popular vote, about 336 seats. So they've got enough to rule on their own. They may seek an informal alliance with the Ulster Unionists, but no, they can rule the country in their own right now.
Is it a good result for New Zealand and its ties with Britain?
I think it certainly it doesn't do anything to harm relations. John Key has made much of his great relationship with the Cameron-led government. Remember, they've both been in power for some time now, both John Key and David Cameron. And I think John Key has indicated or signalled that he believes both of them have successfully focused on the economy. In the case of John Key, we've got quite substantial growth in New Zealand, and in the case of David Cameron, he's carried out an austerity program thanks to the support of Liberal Democrats in the previous government, and that seems to have worked.
Is the relationship as good as John Key says it is?
I think it's very strong, and I think, quite frankly, it would be strong if Britain had elected a Labour leader. There are cultural, economic and security links between the two countries, but there are two question marks on the horizon. Firstly, the Cameron government has pledged to introduce a referendum on British membership of the EU, and that could cause some problems for New Zealand. We're negotiating a free trade association agreement with the EU at the moment, so we'd rather Britain stays in. And the other thing is our membership of the Five Eyes Security Alliance, which has come under the scrutiny in New Zealand in the last year or so. It may mean that we have to loosen our ties in the long term with that arrangement in order to deepen our relationship in the Asia Pacific.
What is the most important aspect of our relationship with Britain?
Well, I think there's no one aspect. I think basically they're multifaceted, the close ties between the countries. I think Britain still, the number of people arriving in this country from overseas to become New Zealand citizens, I think still more come from Britain than many other countries in the world. So it's a historic relationship. And I think that I think that Cameron and Key get on well together. So I can't see any major problems on the horizon.
Is the Five Eyes situation a particular threat to this relationship?
I wouldn't say it's a threat, but I think it's a problem. It's a problem on the horizon. It's a problem for this government, John Key, and I think there's a bit of a disjunction, Rebecca, between the fact that we present ourselves as having an independent foreign policy, a Pacific country, whereas it transpires we've been conducted surveillance on some of our friends in Brazil, for example, and in the Pacific, and we seem to be transmitting this information en bloc to the United States, and that's undercut our independent image. So, and the Chinese have made it quite clear they're not happy about the fact we've apparently been conducting surveillance on them in Auckland. So I think there may be some adjustment from New Zealand's point of view, and that could mean that we have some distance in the future, but that's all to be decided yet.
Now, David Cameron won by quite a slim margin. Is his government stable?
I think for the moment it's stable, but your question, I think, throws light on the difference between the electoral systems in New Zealand and Britain. Sometimes people complain about MMP, but that means the MMP system means, by definition, anybody running for government in this country has to have more than 50% of the vote, or 50% minimum. As we see in Britain, Mr Cameron's formed a government with 37%, which means that the majority of people voted against him.
From the University of Otago, Professor Robert Patman, thanks so much for your time. Thank you.